Hey everybody, how's it going today? Well, back in February, a recent arrival to the top 10 furry conventions has made its way. A very growing in popularity convention in the Northeast, in the New England area, is making a big splash, and that's Anthro New England. Boston. It's the Boston area. Boston. Yeah, we have a Boston Furry convention, and just like the city of Boston, uh, sort of a little bit of a uh, weird but lovable weekend. A lot of furries enjoyed themselves, but there was an issue, and sometimes conventions can be very complicated things. You can have people who are, you can have sometimes conventionees and attendees and guests acting a fool that causes problems for the convention staff, but sometimes it's outside of the venue, as in it is sometimes the venue itself can cause some issues, particularly if that venue has outside help, and such as like business partners or security partners. And in this case, con security is a very serious topic. It's a very important thing that people can feel free to have a good time themselves, and that individuals who would want to cause harm to either the property or to others don't put a stint on the ability for the hotel and for other conventionees to have a good time. That being said, a lot of things went around over that particular weekend, such as like the slightest bit of noise, if there was even a harsh whisper, anything over above a harsh whisper would be like, oh, noise complaint, busted in the door and all this stuff. So there was a lot of Twitter feedback that seemed to indicate that hotel security, or at least the security group that the hotel, in this case it was the plaza, was it Boston Plaza or something like that, decided to hire, was being a little over vigilant. There were some images that also made the rounds on the Twitter to kind of highlight this particular thing. Now the first one, this first one here, is a kind of an example of sort of like a little bit of both worlds-ish kind of a thing here. Like, yeah, like at first when I saw this picture, I thought they were getting angry because these links were showing their butts, and I'm like, well, that's sort of a silly reason to get mad. But then I look down a little bit, and I go, oh, they're standing on furniture. For your own safety and for the safety and for your own safety, don't be standing on hotel furniture in suit. The hotel doesn't want to frickin' have you fall down and break your neck. I know it seems kind of like parental or whatever, but just be cautious about using furniture like that as is not intended, because the hotel might not have bought a piece of furniture that can support a person standing on it like you think it can, and maybe it can't, and maybe it'll collapse under you. I would hope not, but you never know. Hotels can sometimes cut costs, and find fun ways to cut costs that might not be as effective as they might originally entail. But then there's another side of this story. So yeah, the guy, standing next to him going, guys, knock it off, get off the chairs. That's fine, that's fair. But then the question comes around, it's like, how many technicians does it take to screw in a light bulb? Because we have two fursuiters here who are just standing on a piece of furniture. I mean, one guy could ask, come on, guys, we want to make sure that you don't fall over and stuff like that, Obviously, the best way to do that, by the way, is not holding your arm out and trying to push them off or look like you're doing a pushing motion off the chair. It's probably to stand like behind them and say, come on, guys, and make sure that they don't fall backwards. and then kind of like help them down. But that little belly aching aside, like what's with these guys up here in the top corner? Like, this is what I'm talking about. How many technicians does it take to screw in a light bulb? To me, it just seems that kind of shows some evidence to me that like they had a lot more personnel than was absolutely necessary in particular situations, and they were looking for something to do, like because if you are a contractor, right? If you are, say, a secondary party, you know, trying to prove to the hotels, like, you need to hire all these guys as security because we're necessary. We need to be here. They want to prove that their function there is worthwhile. And so sometimes people who might have too many cooks in the kitchen, might cook too many dishes for the party at hand. And so to me, it seems that you might have overdid it with the security a bit. You might have hired a little too much, because clearly there was, like, if it was really bad enough, if security, or there were really a lot of problems that the furries were causing, and the furries were causing a lot of problems, then security would never be able to be, like, security like that would never be able to be in one place, for number one, and number two, the cops would have been called, outside forces would have been called in. So I don't think the furries were being terrible at all. I think it was more of an overzealous and needing to prove that they are necessary organization, wanted to make sure that the hotel felt that their presence was there and that they're doing their job. I'm doing my job, look how much I'm doing my job, kind of a thing. And I think this second image, I think it was taken at the Dead Dog Dance at the end of the convention, sort of also highlights a little bit of this. So this one was taken by Tea Leaf, I believe. He's a raccoon character. The previous links were Strobes, by the way. Strobes and somebody else. I don't know who the other one was. But anyway, so this one here, they had like a little quip up top that said, like, what are those guys doing? I think it's called having fun. Well, that's a weird concept. Huh. Yup. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so once again, quantity over quality, right? There's a lot of security here, but the quality of security they're providing here is very questionable. And the reason I question it very much so is that if you have if there's nothing going on, if there's nothing wrong at the current moment in time, and you have 3 security guards, the worst thing you can have them do is all 3 of them are standing in one location. If you had 3 security, if assuming that these are the only 3 guys they have on security, which I am not sure, I don't know how they run their organization. But if these are the 3 guys, and these 3 guys are on security, and they're supposed to be watching the dance floor to make sure that everything is going okay, then the best thing they can do is spread out. Spread out. Move over. You know what I mean? Move one guy over here while I fix my collar. See what I'm doing? Anyways, yeah, so if you can get your guy over here, and you can have him watching the dance floor, and you can get that other guy watching the door, and you can get the other guy watching the dance. See, that's better security. Having all 3 guys stand in one position not only gives you less eyes on the ground, because if you are a security system worth your beans, you're going to have, like, intercoms between each of these guys, right? If you're gonna have guys, like, pulling on the ears, right? They're gonna be like, hey, and be like, yeah, Alpha Bravo, blah blah blah. You know those things. You got earpieces, right? Those things in the ears, they stick them in there. Yeah. So if your security guys are worth a darn, they're gonna have an ability to communicate with each other while they're separated with one another. The only time that security guards should be together is in time of hostility, or if in a situation is known that if the security firm believes that the situation could escalate into a hostile moment, then grouping up is a more important scheme, because grouping up is more intimidating, which is kind of the point and the joke of this whole, like, Tea Leaf made light of this particular scenario, but a lot of people's response to this is, well, that's kind of intimidating. They have 3 dudes standing there watching the dance like that. And on top of that, the earlier photo I showed had, like, the guys standing above strobes, and, like, all of them were kind of grouped up. Grouping up is sort of intimidation, right? You get the intimidation factor going, which is effective in particular circumstances. But unless the circumstances call for it, it's going to be seen as overhanded. It's going to be seen as you're not making people feel secure. You're making people feel insecure because all of a sudden your security firm in your, like, the way you're using it is making people feel insecure. You're making it feel as if they're not, and it's even worse if they're a guest somewhere, right? If you have a guest in your home, the worst thing you could do is have, like, 2 police officers standing, like, right there and saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" It's like, why do you have a cop in your house? It's like, no reason. But, you know, if it's a hotel, we know why, right? We're more welcome to that kind of a thing. So we expect a few security guards here and there, right? Because it's a bigger building. There's a lot of people to protect, and, you know, there are evil people out there who will do evil things. And sometimes they've done evil things at conventions. So it is important to have good security, and I like knowing that there is good security around. But they do need to be using their resources effectively. So between that and the, like, whisper room party issue, I think, like, I don't know room parties all that much. I don't do that scene too often. So, but I do know that, you know, furry, you know, room gatherings can get a little loud. And, you know, if, you know, they're asked to, you know, knock it off and part ways, they'll do that. If you ask them, if you just go about and just have one person show up and tell them to, you know, break it up, you know, usually they're pretty good. Most furries I know don't want to mess with authority. They don't get uppity. They'll part ways. At least the ones I know. I don't know about any other ones, but typically, you know, that's going to happen every once in a while, and that happens at every convention. I've seen it happen at, you know, Midwest Fur Fest. They'd have a party that got a little too loud. People would have to, you know, break it up. But it usually doesn't get to the point where, like, people were, you know, complaining on Twitter about, like, even in those situations where I knew that was going on, you know, people weren't going on Twitter and saying, "Oh my gosh, the security is being overzealous," probably because, you know, Midwest Fur Fest occurs between multiple hotels, so the security at each one is going to be different. But in this case, like, this particular security detail really got, like, a lot of, like, well, they're really, really, really being heavy-handed. Like, they were being intimidating. They're being very pushy. They were utilizing tactics which were unseemly. A lot of different things. And it did get to the point where, in a follow-up letter from Anthro Northeast themselves, thanking their attendees for showing up for that year, they did note that they would be conversing with the hotel and their security partners in order to ensure that the logistics of the way they handled themselves this year are improved, and that hopefully they can come to an arrangement on that thing. If I were the hotel, this is just me as a sidebar, if I were the hotel, I'd be looking very, very carefully at this security firm and how they handle themselves. I don't know if how long this relationship has been going on, because they're obviously 2 different entities, because this letter here kind of highlights that they are a security partner. Like, if I were the hotel, I would be watching them carefully, you know, and making sure they're not overstating their usefulness or providing you too many resources, where, like, providing you, like, with a huge amount of security where maybe you don't need as much, and maybe they don't need to have as many guys dealing with that. I don't know. I don't know that neighborhood that well. I don't know. And I don't own hotels and all that stuff, so that is really up to the hotel to kind of assess and decide. But at least from the pictures and the conversations, from what I could see, from a third-party perspective, from a person looking on the outside to the inside, it just seems like you have a contractor that's trying to emphasize their usefulness when they're sometimes creating the issues in which they become useful. Because sometimes like skizzy contractors will do that. It's like, oh yeah, it's like an auto mechanic. Like you go to bring your car into the thing, and they're like, oh yeah, your serpentine band just got twirled up in the thing. It's like I didn't hear anything. No, I mean look, it's right there. It's bad. It's, you know what I mean. So trust is a very difficult thing to do, especially when it comes to security. But you need to be able to ensure that the people going to a convention can trust security, and that your hotel and that that they are trustworthy. I do think that sometimes there are well-meaning guys who will get a little heavy-handed, but if it's a pattern of behavior, that is something that needs to be addressed. So, that being said, welcome, Anthro Northeast, to the top 10 club of furry conventions. They had over 2,000 attendees, and they rose a lot for charity. And hopefully they will continue to grow, and hopefully they can hash things out with the hotel, and hopefully they can, if they decide to stay with the hotel, who knows. But they're a growing convention, and Boston's a big city. She'll find a way, I'm sure. She'll find a way, I'm sure. I can't do a Boston accent. I can do book an accent and make it sound like Boston. I have no idea. Anyway, I'm gonna hop out here. You kick a like, kick a subscribe, kick a comment in the comment section. Were you at Boston? Do you have any funny stories with you, with yourself, and how? Did you have any bad interactions with security? Did you have any good interactions with security? Heck, we'll let the comments fly, as it were. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.